I always knew that it was going to be something, and I always knew it could. And I think I never did it for the money, right? Like when it was never about the money. I don't think for me, it was about having a career and a job, as in like I could do something I loved. And I think it took me that long to figure out why I love doing it, which is our mission today. I didn't know what it stood for. It was all about just making, and the reason we made so much product, whether it was life jackets, all these different categories, it wasn't about trying to enter new markets and that. It was actually just about doing something we loved and having a career out of it. The money becomes the byproduct. It wasn't about that.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Invictus Mindset Podcast. Today's guest is the founder and CEO of LSKD, a sportswear brand built around sport, fitness, and adventure. I'm incredibly inspired to have them on today as their mission statement truly resonated with me, which is to inspire people just like you to chase the vibe. None other than Jason Daniel. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Bryce. I appreciate it. I think it just cut out briefly then, but yeah, thank you. Thanks for the amazing intro. I appreciate it. I'm stoked to be here.
I'm stoked to connect with you, man. Like, I've heard you speak on a few different podcasts already, and I mean, starting off, just that statement, it's so broad and inclusive. The line, inspiring people to chase the vibe. I just feel like that resonates with almost everybody on the planet. Jason, where did that kind of come from, and where did that originate with you?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. To be honest, I would say, LSKD really was originated in 2002 as the word loose kid. I grew up wanting to be a professional motocross athlete, but previously before that, I rode BMX. And I got termed loose kid as a high school nickname because I was riding BMX with guys that were a lot older than me and actually were pro BMX riders. And I was the kid giving everything a go. I just, would be the kind of these big jumps I would try. Even though I couldn't make it, I would give it a go. And that's kind of how the brand initiated in 2002. And I finished school in 2003 in grade 12. And then around 2007, I decided to change. I decided that I wanted to put effort into the brand and it to become my career. And we changed it to LKI, which was Loose Kid Industries. And I was actually a carpenter as well. So I was racing motocross. I was a full-time carpenter doing my apprenticeship, and I was trying to build a brand. And all of this mixed together. That's a lot. Yeah, I don't know how I actually did it all back then. When I look at it going, how do I do everything? I was getting up at like 4:30, 5 a.m., working, starting my real job at 6:30. In my lunch break, was on the phone making calls. There was no social media back then. So it was, building relationships with magazines. And, we were predominantly motocross back then. So, growing up racing moto, that's where we kind of got thrown into, and a huge passion with motocross. And when I look back at that and 2010 is when LKI became full-time for me. And then in 2018, September 2018, we changed the brand to LSKD. And when I look back at how we changed the brand, it's been this kind of 15-year journey. It was interesting because I started listening to books. It was around 2015. I actually went to a course called Landmark Forum, and it was a 3-day self-development course. And I wasn't a guy that was all about self-development. Went to that, and then I actually joined a Toastmasters club for about 2 years. And it was because I couldn't public speak. I hated public speaking. You put me in front of 5 people, I would shit myself. But you put me one-on-one, I was okay. I had to get on and sell that brand in front of retail stores. I was okay. So I did that, and look, LKI wasn't doing that well. We were a wholesale business. We were predominantly selling to retailers, from independents to major retailers. There was one in Australia with about 60 retail stores we sold to, and it got to the point where each season you were they would, if you weren't in demand, they wouldn't buy your product. They would buy either their own brand or somebody else's brand. So I kind of went through this phase where we started to kind of almost decline and a little bit and just kind of flatline. And at that point, we had a lot of different products. We had life jackets, motocross gloves, socks. We had some sportswear. We had some streetwear. And it was around, I think, 2016, 2017, I was like, man, why isn't this growing? And I think I was in my late 20s, and I was like, why isn't this growing? What am I doing wrong? Like why? And I actually started to, kind of confront the brutal truths that I'm not doing a good job at this. And I wasn't, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I needed to start learning. So I started listening to books. And to be honest, the word chase the vibe, came from one of our team members. We had this word chase the vibe that we were putting on product because we loved it. And when we changed the brand, all these books we started listening to, and I'm a big Jim Collins fan, it really made me think, like, why do I come to work every day? Why do I come to work? Like, what's my why? And at that time, around 2018, we had about 12 team members at the office. We were predominantly wholesale. We had a little bit of e-commerce. We wanted to really learn how to grow any, I suppose D2C, if you call it. And when I look back, it was kind of a lot of deep thinking, I suppose you would call it, because I was like, hey, if we want to be around for the next 50, 100 years, we need to think of this long term, and we need to create something bigger than ourselves. And, going through, when you're going through, I suppose, that journey when things aren't going well, it really makes you think of, how do I make it better? And I was just really lucky to go through these kind of 10 plus years with it. Essentially it was another brand, but we just changed the abbreviation and said, let's rebuild it from the ground up, and let's rebuild it and take our time instead of just rushing it. And that's where when we had this word chase the vibe. And then at the same time, I was like, instead of it having to be my idea and have to be what I want, I was like, how about this time I get the team's feedback? And, we just got your basic whiteboard out, and we were whiteboarding it out, like LKI, LSKD, and how we changed the brand. I got our community's advice, athletes, and just said, which logo do you like the best? And everyone went to LSKD. I'm like, all right, we're changing the brand. I'm going to listen to our team and our community. And then the same thing happened with the word chase the vibe. I was like, all right, guys, do you like this? What do you think? And it was a lot of conversations with the team. Our head of design, Dylan, actually created the word chase the vibe, or the phrase chase the vibe. And it was like, hey, how about our mission to be inspire people to chase the vibe? And I know it's kind of takes a long time to get to that answer, but when we came up with it, we were like, well, is this what we want to come to work for? Do we want to come to work to inspire people to chase the vibe? And when we came up with that phrase, we were like, okay, well, it has to start internally first. It can't start, let's try and show everyone this, mission. Let's do it internally first. And if we can do that internally first, it'll create that internal culture of what we want to be, in years to come, and then it'll bleed out essentially. So yeah, it was a lot of deep thinking, a lot of books, a lot of trying to understand why, a lot of asking questions, a lot of learning from the team, and to get that. So it was kind of, very lucky to kind of come up with this mission that we really believed in. And then from there, we said, well, what do we want to be best in the world at? What product do we want to create that we're best in the world at? And one of them was women's leggings. And we wanted to create a great product for our female community. And then at the same time, we were predominantly a menswear business. And then we started putting our menswear sweaters into unisex for our female community, because they like to wear, those oversized sweaters. And that's how we kind of ended up with this real edgy style. And we grew up loving sportswear and streetwear. And, I have a huge passion for fitness. And I just recently ran a marathon and a half marathon. I'm doing a cycle leg this weekend.
Congratulations, by the way.
Oh, thanks. I just have a huge passion for it. So it was kind of this and it wasn't just me. I knew that there was this community around us that did the same thing. And had that passion for, sport, fitness, and adventure, and love sportswear with a street aesthetic.
Jason, I love this. I just love how alive you get around describing the brand. I also can't help but note that when you say the phrase chase the vibe, it just shows how much storytelling that unlocks, how much passion that unlocks for you. And I mean, it started early on with you having the bravery to go after really aggressive jumps, to inspire others to pursue something that maybe at the onset seems out of reach. But it's like, you know what? I'm inspired by this. I'm going to go pursue this thing that seems a little bit edgy. Maybe it's outside of my comfort zone, but I really find it really, really, really cool, Jason, that you find comfort in being uncomfortable. And there's a ton of takeaway there. And you noted so many different little nuggets in your storytelling piece around, the brand onset. which encompasses true value, one of which is the art of listening. You listen to the community. And then like, it sounds so cliche for me to say the word listen, but in reality, like listening is so much more than the words that people say. It's understanding, what is the style that's out right now? What are people attracted to? What's the vibe? What's the real shape that people are trying to live their life? And I think being a little bit edgy, coming from more of a streetwear aesthetic or graffiti, similar to the Banksy piece behind me, you combine that with a little bit of functional fitness and a little bit of like this streetwear aesthetic. Now you're actually doing something very, very different. It's almost like back in the day when Allen Iverson influenced basketball culture with hip hop and tattoos and just like a different style vibe that, you look at basketball now and it's definitely been reframed and reshaped because of one iconic figure. And that's kind of what I feel like you're doing. You're like, all right, we had, the traditional Lululemon and, certain things that were very kind of clean cut. But what if we can add a little bit of a flavor to the functional fitness apparel that people are wearing, and then also make it universal where it's not just used inside of a gym, but also used for b-boys dancing, used for people on the street, used for people that are doing all kinds of things that inspire people all around the world. And man, Jason, like when I heard you for the first time on Georgie Stevenson's podcast, the Rise and Conquer podcast, I was like, man, I got to find a way to connect with this guy. And I don't know, today is almost like a little bit of a dream come true because I wasn't sure that we'd be able to get access to you.
Oh, thanks, man. It's humbling hearing that. I'm actually excited to be on the podcast, to be honest. You guys have done an amazing job and have created an amazing fitness community. So yeah, it actually gets goosebumps when you hear the way you speak like that. It's cool. And it's funny because when we before we transitioned to LSKD, LKI, we always looked at what everybody else did. We were always watching what everyone else did. You're looking, you think you see a brand doing something, and especially I suppose in Australia, you're like, I got to do that. And I got to the point, we got this quote up in the office: we don't have competition, we set the standard. And it's not about us as a brand. It's like we've got to make sure that we do what's best for the mission and then how we've created our values as a team. So, and I was so young, I was so lucky to be in my 20s, I'm 35 now, but I was so lucky that at that time, it was almost like a learning experience. And it was almost like, it was almost like an on the job, MBA that, I never went to university, but I just got to experience it and then learn what to do and not what to do. And, I'm not a designer. I've never worked for a brand. I'd never come from that experience, but I'd come from a background of loving, trying to be a professional athlete. I love sportswear. I love street aesthetic, and exactly what you said. We always had this goal that, you could train in the gym, you could do a CrossFit workout, you could run a marathon, you could do anything in a pair of, say, our rep shorts. But you could also, I went out for lunch with my wife and I was wearing rep shorts on Saturday, right? Like, so it's kind of like that style that you can bring wherever you want to go. That was something we were very passionate about, from 2018, since when we made the transition, and it's starting to come to life now, and it just takes time. And we got a long way to go, as we build our brand with the US community. And yeah, it feels like we're just getting started, really. So
I think you are. And I love hearing the roots. It's super cool to me because you mentioned, not pursuing an MBA, but you almost acquired one in the pursuit of trying to build a brand. And for people listening that are trying to build something or pursue something that seems slightly out of reach at the moment, nothing teaches you better than the School of Hard Knocks than just doing. This episode is brought to you by Mush. My friends over at Mush created an incredibly cool product of ready-to-eat overnight oats. And for those of you that listen to the podcast often, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And Mush has done just that, as their products have no more than 7 clean ingredients that are dairy-free, gluten-free, with no added sugar. Mush started right here at Invictus, as they had a vision to create convenient, healthy, and clean nutrition. And this landed them on Shark Tank, where the famous Mark Cuban invested in them. Now they're found in retailers all over the country, including Costco, Sprouts, Target, and Whole Foods. Check out my friends over at www.eatmush.com. Trident Coffee is sponsoring this episode of the Invictus Mindset Podcast. My guys over at Trident taught me something really important this last year, that we are all a bundle of stories, both good and bad, and everything in between. At Trident, they're storytellers. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. They help create connections through symbology and storytelling that engage their customers on an emotional level, and this distinguishes them from other coffee brands. You can find Trident in Imperial Beach and in Coronado. They offer over 14 plus nitro cold brews along with dairy-free options. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from their keto bakery. All of these options will allow you to support your health and fitness journey with Trident Coffee. They're more than just a coffee company. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code Invictus20 for 20% off online and in tap rooms. Once again, that's tridentcoffee.com. Use code Invictus20 for 20% off online and in tap rooms. Take your coffee experience to the next level. Two important factors for us over at Invictus Mindset are true care and attention to detail. My friends over at RX Smart Gear have been bringing innovative fitness tools to the market since 2009. From their award-winning Evo speed ropes to their amazing gymnastics grips to their line of inflatable fitness equipment, they're constantly looking to problem solve within the fitness industry. They're always allowing us to have our gear work for us rather than against us. Hop on over to RX Smart Gear and use discount code Invictus Mindset to shop their latest cutting edge gear. Have your gear work with you and not against you. You mentioned when you were working as a carpenter and kind of starting LKI and doing a few other things, still trying to be a professional BMX rider and trying to pursue a little bit of motocross, that you were making sales calls. You were calling magazines. Nothing will teach you more than trying to sell and trying to connect with people and enhancing the art of communication. And, you know, it's very tough sometimes because you get turned down by 90% of the people that you pursue. And then you have to sit with that, and it renegotiates your relationship with failure. When you look back at some of those moments now with a different lens and a new perspective, what comes to mind, Jason?
It's funny. I was looking back, like, when we're shipping out of my mom's bedroom, and we had like 3 containers, 20-foot containers we were holding our stock in and to ship from. And I grew up on 5 acres, and I had a supercross track in my backyard. And my mom's place ended up turning into pretty much an office. And I just remember walking in that little office every morning at 5 a.m., get in there, get an hour in, and then, or whatever time it was, and then it'd take me about 20 minutes to get to work. And I just, whatever it took, and when you start, it's like you said, like you don't really know where to start. And it's as simple as things. When I look back, I was, I was like, okay, well, in 2007, I was like, all right, I really want to make something of this. I need to find a t-shirt company that has great t-shirts, that I can make our t-shirts and are priced pretty well so we can on-sell them to keep investing in the brand, but have a great shirt. It was all about the product. And I was wearing this shirt to work. The building company I worked for had these shirts that were made from Gildan. And I looked at the label. I was like, oh, Gildan, cool. I'll Google that, or whatever it was, and go on. And then I just found a contact, built a relationship. And then, we ended up buying t-shirts from there to start with. And then I'd try and find a screen printer. And it wasn't like you get asked questions today. Oh, did you start dealing offshore? Or how did you find these supply? It was a lot of trial and error. Like there was not a lot of access to the likes of Alibaba and places like that, I suppose, that are around today. And that if someone's starting up needs to find a supplier, it was literally winging it. It was like, how do we do it? We got to start somewhere, and we got to find a place, and we got to build a relationship. And I didn't start dealing with, I suppose, even down to like offshore manufacturers to really understand, to get technical product made till around, I suppose, 2011. It took a long time. Everything was, we keep it as local as we could, but it gets to a point where technical product you can't make, in your own backyard sometimes and in Australia. So it just took time. And I look back at it, the amount of no's, because we're a wholesale business, I'd have this diary and a list of retail stores you'd call. And because I was, because I didn't have much time.
No.
Yeah, and I didn't have much time during the week. So on a Saturday was my day to go, say I'd be racing motocross in, say, a place like 4 hours away, Harvey Bay. And there was a stop off Gympie that was like 2 hours into the drive. I would leave early Saturday morning because the store might close at 1. But traditionally, you're not meant to visit retail stores on a Saturday because that's their day of trade. But I'm like, I kind of have no choice. So I would have this 2-page catalog and I would drive up there and I'd get there at 10 a.m. in the morning and I'd be like trying to sell them the brand and trying to get them to buy T-shirts. And then when, whether they said no, I think it took me 2 years to get that one account, to be honest, in Gympie. And I raced up there a lot. So I'd go and see them a lot. And when I finally got it, it was like, great, now the relationship starts, And as you said, to me, it was never a no. It was just like a when. If I truly believed in it, it was just a when, and what time was it going to take to be able to, was securing a new account. It was never for me a no. It was like, well, what am I doing wrong? How do I get better? It just takes time. So yeah, it was.
How did you develop that mindset? Was that from motocross? Was that kind of around the lines of like, all right, I missed the jump this time, but that doesn't mean I'm never going to make it. It just is a matter of when. Like, how did you develop that mindset? And when did you make the decision like, hey, I want to go all in on building this brand versus conforming to a societal norm and working a traditional 9-to-5, which it comes with a lot of security. You're done at a certain time. You get to, have your paycheck biweekly. You get your health insurance or whatever. And, what you did is a lot riskier, but also a lot more fun.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny. I was so young. I mean, when I started, it was 2007, right? I was 20. I think I was 20. And I always knew that LKI or Loose Kid was going to be my career. For some reason inside, from like 02 to 07, around that period, we'd be traveling to the races. I'm like, one day this brand could be something, but I hadn't made the commitment within myself. And, I was an apprentice carpenter, so I was on $240 a week. I was on $7 an hour. My first year apprenticeship, I was like 18, 19 actually. I'd actually was my now wife, my girlfriend, when we were 18. So I think she also played a big part because we were together for quite a few years before I finally put the effort in and said, let's do it. I don't know. I always knew that it was going to be something, and I always knew it could. And I think I never did it for the money, right? Like when it was never about the money. I don't think for me it was about having a career and a job, as in like I could do something I loved. And I think it took me that long to figure out why I love doing it, which is our mission today. I didn't know what it stood for. It was all about just making, and the reason we made so much product, whether it was life jackets, all these different categories, it wasn't about trying to enter new markets and that. It was actually just about doing something we loved and having a career out of it. The money becomes the byproduct. It wasn't about that. So I think, and obviously I was very lucky. I was working from a young age. My mum owned a plant nursery. So I was, my grandparents, my nonno's from Italy and came over on the boat. So he had to work. They've done an amazing job. I grew up working. I was working in our nursery from I don't know, it might have been 6 or 7, I don't know. But I was always helping. I was working at the markets on a Sunday selling plants at a local, like a market store. I would drive around and help do cuttings where you would knock on someone's door and we'd trim their plants. So we'd trim their trees back, but we would load it up and then we'd go back and repot it and then resell it at the markets. But we would help, we'd clean their yard up because it was overgrown. So we would, if it explains it well enough. So when I look back, and I do look back at my history of like, I do ask those questions. I'm like, why have I been given this drive? I think, I was kind of brought up with this, just working mindset, I suppose, my whole life. And because if I needed to, if I ever wanted to ride a bike and race, I had to work at the local gas station. We call it service station in Australia, but local gas station. to save enough money to buy a bike. And my grandparents helped me buy my first motocross bike, but I went halves with them. But I had to have a job to save enough money so they would help support me because my parents couldn't afford it. So, we didn't grow up with a lot, to be honest. We didn't. We had to work for everything we got. So whether it was that or just, I was lucky to get around the right people at a young age where some of the guys I rode BMX with, one went off to win X Games 3 times dirt, Corey Bowen. And, when I look back at it, I'm like, I was a 12, 13-year-old kid riding with these guys that actually ended up, riding in X Games. There was no such thing as wanting to go to parties at 13, 14, when you're going through that transition in high school and parties and people are starting, kids are starting to want to drink alcohol. I was like the opposite. I was like, no, riding. And then it was moto. It was like, I want to be a pro motocross racer. I wasn't about parties. It wasn't about drinking. It was like super focused. And I just was, when I think back, I'm like, I just got around the right people and the right influence. And I was like, nope, I want to be a pro athlete. Never made it, didn't come close, but it gave me that mindset, I suppose. And I think motocross does too. It's a tough sport. It's probably what I would say up there with some of the toughest sports in the world, racing moto. So,
yeah, for sure. I love that you mentioned the pro athlete mindset. I think that's a really crucial key because, there's such a genetic factor and there's, being at the right place at the right time, performing well for over time, like a consistency factor when you're being observed by scouts or whoever. And it's cool to see how you've maintained the pro athlete mindset throughout, and also hearing the hours and hours that you've put in learning the art of selling and sales. It truly is an art, but it doesn't feel like sales when you really believe in what you're doing. And, going back to the nursery and the planting and the replanting of things and working at the markets, like when I observe your body language, it's almost like it didn't feel like selling because you believed in what you were doing. And that obviously transitioned you well to LSKD and what you're doing now. I guess what I'm really curious about is you have such a drive, Jason. You have this, I'll work at a gas station if I have to. I'll find a way. And if there's a better way to do it, I'm going to find it, which is one of your core values. But when you look at trying to instill that mindset on many others, it's challenging. Because high achievers don't like mediocrity and mediocre people don't like high achievers. So then when you're trying to create a culture within your company, it's tough because there's different types of people that operate at different frequencies. And from the CEO mindset, it's almost like hire slow, fire fast. And I'm sure you've heard all of these things before. With all these little nuggets floating around in your headspace or playing ping pong maybe, how have you developed such a culture around this drive, the unique art of selling, and then simultaneously inspiring people to want to come to work every single day?
Yeah, it's crazy when you think of it like that. I don't know. It's an interesting one because, the LKI days, it was completely not like that. I was probably so driven in the fact of I put people off because I was too full on. And don't get me wrong, I'm like, I get pretty excited and full on in the office. I get very passionate as a part of the team. I think, when we transitioned, I kind of realized that, you can't force people to come to work and you can't force people to do things, but your team, even myself, I don't go to the office or go, in my career to do a bad job, right? Like no one wants to do a bad job. So I think when we started to transition, and I always go back to a little bit of like the history of the brand because I got to go through those mistakes. I lost team members. Our head of design, Dylan, left for 18 months. He started in 2011. He left for 18 months. And then I called him up and I said, man, I've fucked up. Like, I made some mistakes. Do you want to come back? You're phenomenal. He's like, hey, I've learned a lot too. I've grown up. Yeah, I want to come back. And he was a part of designing the LSKD logo. And so when I think about, like, I can't say, I know it all because I've gone through those patches of mistakes and I'm still making mistakes today. But I think it was all about, when you say the hire slow, fire fast, I think that term is really brought around, when you hire on your mission and values and how we recruit our team, it's all around finding the ideal team player, hire hungry, humble, smart team members that want to be a part of, our mission to inspire people to chase the vibe. And, it's not a perfect science. I mean, essentially you're not recruiting on a resume, right? As everyone says, it's character. It plays a part in that. And we recruit on, we give out, we onboard, we give books to the team when we're recruiting, if they listen to them and show interest. And, we have a bit of a system of how we recruit. But yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's like, I don't expect people to work. I have a young family now, so I have 2 young kids. I know how hard it is having kids. It's, finding that balance between being a great dad and working a lot of hours. And we have a lot of team here that have families and as well. And so I never expect people to work, hundreds of hours a week, right? That's not what we're here to do, because then they don't get to live the mission either. So when I look at what we're doing as a brand, I think it's like, as I was saying before, teams work from home on a Wednesday or Friday, or, whenever works for them to work from home a day a week, because it's, get shit done day. We have no meeting Wednesdays, but we all work on it together. Like whenever we make decisions, it's together. It's like, I try to create something where it's like, we all need to make these decisions together. As the business gets bigger, there's, there's about over 100 team members now. It's getting bigger. And, the decisions when you want to move fast and break shit is one of our values. It does get a little harder sometimes, but I think being very clear and open with the team and what we've got to achieve and where we're going through, it's very special, to be honest. And I actually am very proud to be a part of this. I'm a part of it as well. And, when I look at little things, I mean, this is probably something that to me was a big thing when we made the shift, was no one gets an office and no one has a car park. First in, best dressed in our car park. If I'm late, I'm on the street. I don't have an office. I actually don't even have a desk, to be honest. I just kind of take everyone else's desk and sit next to them and annoy them, depending on what department I work in, what day. But, and then I get to learn more. But yeah, I mean, that was a big thing for me. I was like, we need to change the way that people think that. It's like the CEO normally gets his own park or her park. And I'm like, that's not how it should be, right? It's a sweep the sheds mentality. First in, best dress. It's to me, that's the way it should be. And I think that's kind of mindset is where it starts instilling, because if you go and do that, but then you have that, it just doesn't make sense in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, it's, I'm proud to be a part of it. I love coming to work every day. And if I didn't love coming to work, I'd tell the team. I'd be like, hey, I don't enjoy coming to work anymore. What have we done? What's happened here? Because I made a decision in 2018, 19. I really wanted to enjoy what I did as well. I really did. I was, it's hard, it's full on, it gets stressful, that all that happens because, we're trying to build something greater than ourselves. It's not an easy journey. But at the same time, if I'm going to look back in 30, 40, 50 years time, man, it was a bunch of fun, like every day it was a grind, and we had a ton of fun doing it as well. But yeah, I don't know, it's special. It's very special. I'm just proud to be a part of it.
It's very special to hear as well. And I love the imagery that you create with it. Since we've alluded to it just briefly, I know you've been put on the spot with this a few times, and I'm happy to help you out. I docked it down over here. But I'd love to we talked about the mission being to inspire people to chase the vibe, but I want to dive into the values, because I love what you said around hiring people mostly for character, less about the resume. It's easy to build a resume, make it look super sexy from afar, but then you meet the person, you're like, they're so great in so many different arenas, but the puzzle piece just doesn't fit for whatever reason. And I think the character and the actuality of the person creates a huge factor there. And, I'd love to define some of your values for our community today, because I align so much with them and I love them so much.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because when we created the values, it was something that it was, because if you asked me back in around 2015, what our values, what are values, I'd be like, man, what's a value? And I actually had someone do the exercise with me about creating company values. I was like, oh, what is it? Like, well, I don't get it. Yeah, it's family, or it's this. And I'm like, I had no idea. So it's interesting now, our values were very clear in how we make decisions based on them. But it's taken a long time to even understand what values mean. And it was really like the common sense rule. A value is just how you make a decision every day. And it was actually the start of 2021. We'd just come off the back of 2020, and honestly, we had an amazing year. Everyone done a great job, but there was so much to learn. We'd made a lot of mistakes in community experience. And I was like, we need to create our values. And we'd been listening to some different books. And I said to actually our head of community experience, Jade, I said, let's work on these values together and let's do an anonymous form. So we actually did an anonymous form, and there was about 30 at the time that filled it out and put the values together. And we literally started just honestly keeping it really grassroots. And when we did it, we kind of kept it like, what does the values mean to you essentially, or what are your values and how would it tie in? And then we just kind of like broke it all down. We'd print it out, we'd write it out, we'd scribble it. And then we kind of created 6 core values from that. But it actually took about a good 6 months to create them. So they were really only created, funny enough, about, I would say, 2021. But it was like we'd already been doing it in the years, which obviously was enjoy the journey, create a community. I'm sitting in create a community room, sweep the sheds. There's a better way to do it, find it, move fast, break shit, and 1% better every day. And when I look at them, and it's funny, I've been put on the spot and I always get so nervous. I always somehow end up almost forgetting values on the spot. I'm like, I don't know why, but we literally talk about it every day. And that podcast I did with Georgie, a lot of the team like, how did you forget the values? You talk about it every day. I'm like, honestly, when you get put on the spot and you're like freak out, I was like, I did that exact thing. And I'm always trying to like practice them because I'm like, I say it every day, but then it's so weird. But I think when I look how our values were created, and it was honestly, it was really cool because I always say like, I actually didn't create them. It was like, how do we get the team to be a part of creating these? And then we write it down and we literally were scribbling it out. And the actual there's a better way to do it, find it value, that was actually a word. And 6 months in, we ended up changing it to that because we were like, well, how do we, how is that like, the move fast break shit value that was created isn't about physically breaking stuff. It's about as you get bigger and bigger, you can put a lot of process in and it can slow things down. And how do we make sure that we don't let a process slow us down to constantly keep learning and get better? So that's where that value comes in. If we need to make a decision, we're like, let's just make this decision and let's move fast, let's get it done and let's learn from it, and learn from it or what the community say, and then we'll get better. But yeah, the values are definitely something that have really kind of just tied the mission together. And how we make decisions every day and how we communicate. And yeah, it's been really cool to watch. And, I watch our team give tours at our office. I might be sitting in a meeting room in a meeting, and I'll be watching like some of the team actually give tours around the office. We give a lot of tours at our office and New HQ, and I hear them talk about the values, and it's just so special. And I get so proud because you hear them talk and you're like, wow, like how they talk and the passion they talk behind it, because it aligns to them as well, is super cool. And as you said, back to recruitment and hiring team, it all goes back to those values as well. And you ask them, and we get a lot of team members, a lot of new potential team members reaching out to us now because they align to the values. So we're recruiting from essentially either within or they're connecting with us, which is cool because they have that connection to the values. So it's really special. And they're quite simple. They're not overcomplicated. They're very relevant. And we make decisions of it every day. And even down to when I'm training, whether, in the gym or preparing for an event, I use them for that too. So yeah, it is cool to see how they've come to life, but how the whole team makes decisions on it and how the whole team, essentially, believes in it as well, because it aligns to their personal life. It's not just about their career.
That's what I love about the values that you've created, is they're interpersonal and they bridge the gap between work and real life. And I feel like that's at the intersection right there is where the magic truly happens, because you're blending the line between work and play, and you're empowering people to be innovative and make decisions that they feel like are the best in the moment for the betterment of the brand and the brand vision and where you're going. And I that's what I really love, because then everybody on your team, at least who I've spoken to thus far, and some of the sponsored athletes that work with you guys, they truly feel empowered. And I think that's true, like, examples of good leadership, when It's not just everything needs to be like, oh, hold on, let me ask the boss. It's like, no, I feel empowered to make this decision. And then they make it, and hopefully it's a good outcome. But if it's not, it's like, you're not going to be reprimanded for this. The question becomes, what did you learn? How do we improve upon this so that we can get 1% better every single day? And I think from a leadership standpoint, Jason, you're doing such a good job. I want to break these down kind of one by one, starting with the first one, which is enjoy the journey. When you guys kind of talk about that piece, along the journey, there's going to be failure. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be peaks. There's going to be valleys. What is your storyline along the very first value of enjoying the journey?
Well, personally or as a business, because everyone can interpret enjoy the journey, I suppose, in their own way. And I think
For sure. I'd love to hear your personal side of things.
Well, I mean, it depends on you on the day, right? Like, there's always something, in any, if you're an athlete or in a career standpoint, you're always going to have small step backs. There's always going to be some kind of problem form, especially when you're in a fast growing business or as an athlete. Like, and it's always good to look back and go, hang on, man, we got to just remember to enjoy the journey, right? Like, enjoy the journey, and it's that, like, there's days where it is tough, and it's like, hey, remember, enjoy the journey. Like, did we? And I think for me, the way I use it is, where it's like, have fun, be yourself, and embrace diversity. Be yourself, I think, is a really important thing. And to me, that part of it, I relate to so much because, you'll hear a lot of team members, or a lot of people, like they're a different person at work to how they are around their friends, to how they are, if they're at a gym, right? Or like, they're kind of like, they have their own personas. It's like, no, just be yourself. Like, don't change who you are. And I used to think that too. I think at work I'd have to be really professional, and then around my friends I would, I'd be essentially me and have a bunch of fun. I'm like, no, why can't I be that at work too? Like, why can't I be that at the office and be myself? Like, to be honest, I'd probably get the piss taken out of me more than anyone at the office. Like, because they've got a book of words about me, and Keith, our COO, reads them to everyone all the time around, like, because I'll just mix my words up. Sometimes I get excited and I talk really fast, and I'll just say stupid stuff that's like doesn't make sense almost, and because I'm in the moment, and then they write them down and they tell everyone, and then there's this joke about it. It's like, enjoy the journey, right? Like, just be yourself. Like, I know that I'm not perfect and I make mistakes, and I think that values really kind of comes from that, because if you're having fun, you actually learn more, I believe, and I went to a Tony Robbins 2019, and he even said that, and I was like, man, it's so true. You will learn so much more when you're having fun. It's the same as events. When I raced motocross, I wanted to be a pro athlete so bad. I actually didn't become one, essentially. I made it to state pro, but then as I've started now, like, I've trained, I'd stopped competing in events for about 8 years. And then I started getting back into it. When my son was born, I did a triathlon. I actually did this like kind of functional fitness event with Fitstop, was the first one. And I really enjoyed it. Then I did like a mini triathlon, a sprint. Then I did a half marathon. And as I started going into these events, after years of racing motocross and like training, way over training on race day, put too much pressure on myself, thought I had to win, I'd actually compete worse. Where now when I come into events, whether it's a marathon, a half marathon, or what, I got a cycle leg coming up, I'll go out and have fun, and I'll go hard, and I'll put myself in the hurt locker, but I'll have fun. Like, to the point I'll be talking to people on the racetrack, like motivating, saying hello, like, because I want to have fun. Like, but then I'll end up doing better than what I expected because I've got no pressure. I don't care, like, it's like, I care, but I don't. It's I think it's that whole thing is when you enjoy it and you have fun and you go, well, I'm so lucky to be out here and getting at it. I'm actually going to go better. And if I do have a bad race, who cares? Like, it's the same in your career. You're going to go hard. You want to be the best, but you also got to remember that it's not going to be perfect and you're going to make mistakes, but you got to enjoy it at the same time because you're lucky to be in that position too. So I think that value plays a big part as an overall aspect, because I use it in my whole life. And I mean, fitness is a big part of my life. Like I almost schedule in fitness before I schedule in my work day, right? Like I literally know that I want to exercise, or I'm training for something, because I'm about to sign a running coach because I want to do under 3-hour marathon next year. And I'm like, for me, that makes me better in my career, right? It makes me better every day. So, so that's why I talk a lot about fitness, because I'm a bit of a fanatic about it. But
I love that they all kind of coincide and connect with one another. But I also love how you described it, because I don't know, when you are having fun, you typically learn more. And I love that you alluded to Tony Robbins, because he talks about when you exchange expectation for appreciation, your world changes forever. And it sounds like you're on the course, talking some smack to people, talking to other people, and, out there really seeking your peak expression, but you're married to the process and divorced from the outcome. The outcome's going to be what the outcome's going to be, versus before it was so outcome oriented that the process kind of just dissipated, and you weren't, really enjoying the journey. You were focused on, what's going to be the score. And I think many people that are highly competitive get stuck in that sometimes, because unfortunately in the world, depending on who you ask, there's no asterisk on scoreboards. I'd like to take a moment to thank our friends over at Vuori. They are bringing a new perspective on performance apparel. Their products are incredibly versatile and allow for freedom and flexibility in any arena. As humans, we are complex creatures, always on the move and always on the go. Allow Vuori to join you as you navigate the complexities of the human experience. Whether you are training, adventuring, lounging, traveling, or attending meetings, Vuori has options to suit your active lifestyle. My personal favorites are the men's core short and their line of Ponto performance products, which are so incredibly soft. Check these guys out over at vuori.com/Invictus Mindset for 20% off your very first purchase and free shipping. That's vuori.com/Invictus Mindset for 20% off your very first purchase and free shipping. Everything they have is designed to work out in, but doesn't look or feel like it. It's so freaking comfortable that you won't want to wear anything else. Breathing, movement, circulation, digestion. What do all these body functions have in common? Our muscles. There are over 600 muscles in the human body that are responsible for supporting our daily activities. That's why your muscle health is incredibly important. On this podcast, I always discuss seeking our peak expression and striving to maximize our human potential. And so I try to share with you the top products that I find on the market. My H&B is a clinically proven ingredient that has been shown to help build and maintain lean muscle mass, increase strength, improve recovery, and enhance body composition. Learn more about your muscle health at myhmb.com/Invictus. Once again, that's myhmb.com/Invictus. Enhance your muscle health and enhance your life. And I think getting too caught up in that, in this concept of significance and legacy versus just try to be 1% better every single day. I love that your value systems, Jason, really, they break down macro into micro. And I think that makes it really relatable. And when I look at LSKD, what I really love, it's not just the fact that, you're all about, getting better and being all inclusive and this, that, and the other, but more importantly, it's the vulnerability of just be yourself. It's the authenticity. When you look at the brand, it's like when you look at those shorts, it's not like, oh, you wear those and you're a super athlete. It's like you wear those and you can go to the farmer's market, you can go to the grocery store, you can go for a run, or you can go snatch 300 pounds. You can literally do anything that you want in them. And that means that there are no limits on what you can be as a human being. But there's this interconnection around, hey, let's be more human and try to get a little bit better. And whatever the unique way you define better as, go be that. And we're going to support you along the way. and have some fun in the process. And I don't know, I just think that mission and that storyline lives on a lot longer than the super stardom, I guess, that, most professional athletes have a career of 3 to 5 years. The lucky ones are 10 to 20, and those are all phenomenal to watch. And I'm huge fans of all of them, but there's only a few of those. I think there's a lot more people that are on the pursuit of, hey, let's get a little bit better in this micro moment. And as a byproduct of learning the habit, it enhances the process. And by enhancing the process, we actually enhance the outcome too. What do you think about that as like a loose summary so far?
100%. You explained it probably a bit better than I did. Definitely better than I did, but it's exactly that. I mean, and you got to enjoy the process, which is a part of enjoy the journey in its own way. I think, and for me, it's funny, with especially the last 4 years, the growth has been phenomenal, and where we're heading as a brand, there's been so many milestones, but also so many things we constantly need to work on, but it's almost becomes a process. Okay, cool. It's going to take 12 months to get to that. It's going to take 5 years to get to that. What do we need to do every single day? It's like if you focus on that and you focus on the mission, the values, our product to be best in the world for our community, inspiring, the people to chase the vibe, the score will take care of itself, like that because you're focusing on the process. So yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's exactly that. It's all about the process, and then even this year getting ready for, say, I'm using a sports example, but I think it all goes hand in hand. I think a business is like a sports team, in my own opinion. Getting ready for the marathon this year, it was like, by the end of it, it was grueling. Like, I was like, man, but I'm also like, I got to remember that I got to appreciate this journey. I've had like a cool crew that I get to run with every week, and we get to train together. We have to have great conversations. I actually work, ahead of content. We train together. We did the marathon together, so we train together. So we're talking about work and, where we're going as a brand, but like the process to get there. Race day was just the day, it was just the day we went out and ran, and, stoked to get an amazing, the goal time, wanted 3 hours and 7, I think 19, but it wasn't really about that. It was about the journey leading in. And then that you ended up getting the outcome because you were just enjoying that part of it too, and yeah, it makes perfect sense. I think that's exactly what, because building a brand or a business takes time. It's interesting. Like for us, it's like we've almost kind of come on, with the brands being seen, but the history of our brand has taken so long to get there. And for me, it's interesting because I look back and go, man, I've been doing it all, I've been doing this now for, it's been around 12 years full time. So not that long, but it really only feels like a couple of years for me. It's like really early days. And when you look at a lot of different founders, especially from big sportswear brands, a lot of them didn't get started until they did something else for 10, 15 years, and then they started their brand when they were like late 30s. So you realize that it does take time. A lot of these people think you've got to build something overnight. But when you look at a lot of these iconic brands and in sportswear, a lot of them it took them a very long time. It's just that those brands have been around for 30, 40, 50 years. You don't realize that it took them a very, very long time. So for me, I'm like, it's a process, it's a journey, and, got to enjoy it. So, yeah.
From the outside looking in, knowing briefly about the founder's journey, I feel like you've become almost like an overnight success. The growth and development of LSKD, the amount of high caliber athletes wearing the product and seeing it in such a up and coming sport like CrossFit and a few other spaces is very, very fast. And out of curiosity, Jason, I love the book Shoe Dog, where it discusses Phil Knight's journey to creating Nike. Have you checked that book out yet before?
Yeah, big fan. A big fan of that book. I've read it a few times, actually. Read it and Audible as well. I'm a big fan of their story. And
dude, the Audible version is so good because he describes like the behind the scenes, which is epic, just to hear like the grief in his voice as he's transitioning from Blue Ribbon and just being turned down by so many different people in the process, but just sticking with the vision despite the family obstacles and the challenges within life.
Yeah, and to be honest, that book played a big part of my journey. Being listening to that and realize how long it took, and it was inspiring. I mean, I run marathon. When I run or train, I wear Nikes. I'm a big fan of their story. And I love the development of their shoes and that story. And I'm a huge Phil Knight fan. I've found a lot of different books that they've done off take of that to learn more around the story, because it's just his journey to get there, and how they called themselves a bunch of misfits, and their butt face meetings, and like it was just they were literally just passionate about the athlete. It was super cool, and you look at that brand today, but not realize the humble beginnings Nike came from, and how true to their history they are, their brand. It's actually really inspiring. I'm a big fan of that brand. It was kind of cool when our store in Chadstone in Melbourne shopping centre, it's actually one of the biggest shopping centres in the Southern Hemisphere. It was pretty cool put our store right next to Nike, to be honest. It was a pretty surreal feeling because, as much as we both make sportswear, I'm a fan of their shoes.
That's super cool. And I think there needs to be more of that in the world, is like competing brands that are actually fans of one another versus like adversaries.
Yeah, I was just saying that the athlete have a short span in their career, and that was something that we were passionate about. As we have pro athletes in the team. Say one of our athletes, Brie Masters, she got fourth at the Commonwealth Games in a 100-meter relay sprint for track, and she looks after PR in our team. And helping an athlete, have a career, and she was traveling for the world titles, Com Games, working remotely, but also a part of our team. To me, that's really inspiring. Brie was helping make this podcast happen. But she's also a hugely inspiring athlete, and is building her career outside of being a professional athlete for wherever she wants to go, in 5, 10, 15 years. That inspires me too, as a brand of what we'd love to achieve, because, you said athletes have that span of like, what are they going to do after their career, whether they're in the sport or, you can still compete, but you've got that pinnacle of high level for a certain amount of time. And, how do we help athletes post-career, and hopefully they can, have a career at LSKD, or, we're inspiring them to do something. That's something that all tied back to what we did as a brand, which is super cool.
That's incredibly inspiring, Jason. The fact that you take ownership of creating opportunities for people to explore and continue to evolve even after the perceived pinnacle of their life. I think it's super cool. I also really love the analogy that you made around a business being very similar to a professional sports team. And I can't help but lean into the All Blacks, the rugby team there in Australia, New Zealand, I believe, to be specific, and the statement that you have as a part of your value system, sweep the sheds. That's a famous one that I really align with.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of that book, Legacy. Massive fan of the Legacy book for the New Zealand All Blacks. And I actually am half Kiwi as well, so my dad's from New Zealand. And it's the New Zealand All Blacks. If anyone knows the All Blacks team, they were a scary team. You knew when they did the haka, and you knew when they were playing, they were a force. And it's funny, until I listened to that book, I really realized how they became that. That book, Legacy, is so inspiring. We all listen to that book here. That's a part of one of our onboarding books, and it's very inspiring. And it's cool how they created things from different teams in Australia, where they had the no dickheads policy and different things, and they had that term, sweep the sheds, which our team terms sweep the sheds as part of one of our values. But yeah, the New Zealand All Blacks and what they did as a team, and that book Legacy is a phenomenal story.
For sure. What does that term or that phrase mean? Sweep the sheds, for people to learn to apply that to their lives as well.
Okay, so sweep the sheds is like, no one's bigger than the team, and no one's too big to do the small things. It goes as small as like, no one gets a car park. That's sweep the sheds. To us, an example, I suppose, on Friday, I was just mentioning to you before we started, we've got a lot of shipments arriving. Our fulfillment center team is under the pump. They've got a lot going on, and we had a crew from our office team go out and help them unload a container. And it was a hot day, and they got out and helped. A big crew went out and helped them. What would normally take a couple hours took half an hour, and they supported another department. That's, to me, is sweep the sheds. We've got in and helped the team. They needed some help. It was half an hour out of our day. Like, it didn't take long. We got in, we helped them unload. To me, it's like the sweep the sheds moment where you need to help someone. Like we did a workout on Friday. We had actual CrossFit EXF that were top 15 at the games, and top 15. Moses, the founder of EXF, came in and did a lifting class with us at 1 p.m. on Friday. And after the class, the gym was dirty. So myself and our head of marketing got in there and vacuuming, mopping, wiping it all down, like cleaning it up ready, and got in and get it ready for the next day, because we had an event here the next day. Like, it's the little things, no one's too big to do the small things. And you got to lead by example. Each team member has to help each other out no matter what's going on, because that's how we, form that bond to know that, when we need to get it done, we get together and we get it done, when it's game day, so, and every day essentially is game day at the office, so that sweep the sheds mentality is just, you're never too big to do the small things, which, is in the book Legacy. They said when they finished a game, all the players, at the end of the game, the press is left, they're there literally sweeping up, all the dirt off their boots. They're sweeping up, cleaning out their locker rooms, saying that these guys have just played in front of 100,000 people and then millions around the world, and now they're cleaning out their locker rooms. It's like, these guys didn't need to do that, but they do it because it's the right thing to do, and it gains respect for each player and their greater team to know that they all care about each other. I think that's really important, and I think it's, as you get bigger and bigger, you get busier and busier. And, it's really cool to see on Friday the crew get together and just jump in and help. And, and it took them half an hour, and they got in and got it done and helped out. And that was inspiring. And we said, that's a sweep the sheds moment, crew, like, let's go, and everyone talks like that. It's like, let's get it done. So yeah, that to me is the term of how we use it as a brand.
I love that. It almost makes me want to create like a YouTube Shorts channel of just little bits around sweep the shed moments of all kinds of industries all over the world, just finding these unique moments where people are sacrificing for the greater good of humanity. And I mean, that's what I feel like exercise is. That's what I feel like, trying to do the right thing when nobody is watching. All of these things add up to that philosophical concept of sweep the sheds, which is super cool. I think it's pretty self-explanatory what 1% better every day means, but I'd love to explore the concept of move fast and break shit. That one really, really aligns with me as well. And I think, I don't know, it's cool because I think in order to create true change, you got to be gently disruptive. And that's exactly what you guys are kind of doing with the streetwear apparel and aesthetic component to functional fitness apparel.
Yeah. It's a, so move fast, break shit was termed, which is like fail forward, dare to think differently, nothing's impossible. And when I go back to like, sportswear with the street aesthetic, we felt that, no one really did that. You either were street or you were either sport. And we were like, why? Like, what's stopping us doing this if we're passionate about it? And
why can't you be both?
Why not stand for something, right? Like, I love wearing an oversized fit tee with a pair of rep shorts, and I literally can throw down in that, or I could take it off and put a sportswear tank on, as well as have my, sportswear shorts. Like, you know what I mean? There's no limitations. And where it applies every day, I suppose, is, we have to make decisions every day. Like, every day we have to make decisions as a team or an individual, because, everyone has their role to do in the team. And if we're going to grow and move forward and push boundaries, you're going to fail, right? Like, you're going to fail, and you've got to fail forward. So if you don't open, in my opinion, up that area for opportunity to fail, and then look at it and go, where did we go wrong, so we can learn from it. And they're just small things. It could be, let's test something on social media. Let's test this reel. Let's, it's not just about the big strategies. Like you got to try things which then form into big things. It's the small things you do every day that you make a decision, whether it's through marketing, to a piece of content on socials, to a digital ad, to how you're working with a potential new athlete because, you feel there's an alignment there and you really want to work with them. You're testing to see if there's that like synergies together, to a whole new product that you're developing. Like there's just so many things that you can apply it to every day that you have to make decisions. And then it goes back to then, well, with say the value create a community, it's like, well, how do we make sure it ties back to that value of creating a community? Because if we're going to move fast and break shit and give it a go, we got to make sure we're still creating a community because that's just as important, which then makes you be 1% better. It flows on and how you do that. And is there a better way to do it? Well, let's see if there is and find it. And then you tie it back to our mission does it inspire people to chase the vibe? Are we inspiring our community? Because if we're just doing it because we want to get views or we're doing it because we want to look cool, that's not the way to do it then, because you got to make sure it goes back to that, because it's not about being cool. It's about tying it back to the mission. So it's like, it's really crazy to watch how each individual value has kind of got tied together. So we'll be in a conversation that I might be a part of with the team, and we'll be talking about something we're going to do for the week, in our daily marketing whip, or that, if I jump into a marketing whip with the team, and me, I love marketing. Like I spent a lot of time with, we only had a head of marketing start in April, really, like we didn't have a head of marketing or a marketing manager in the brand. It was just, there was all different team members, but I work with them every day, and they have the autonomy, to build something. So I think, but it's always, we go back to those terms. Like if we've got an idea, we always go back into, does it help us create a community? Because that's just as important around essentially the customer. Like that's the most important thing. Our community is why we're here and who we work for. So if it doesn't, then probably don't do it, because you're just doing something for the wrong reasons because you think it's cool. And I don't think that's the way to be doing things. So it all kind of ties back into each other when you're asking those questions. And that's where move fast, break shit comes in. Should we do it? Well,
you don't have competition. You set the standard.
You may as well do it, and let's go. So that's kind of where it all kind of formed in together as a team and how we kind of created it. And it kind of goes piece by piece as you're asking questions around when you need to make a decision. Because a lot of the thing that can slow things down is decision making, I believe. If you can't make a decision, then how are you going to?
That bottlenecks a lot for sure.
A lot, and I think a lot of big businesses, that's where they hurt, is because, and as a brand growing quite quickly, we have to also be very self-aware that we can't let that get in the way as well. But you got to put great process in for the team, but you also want to have that great direction for them so they can move fast and do things to keep growing, and that helps them grow in their career, which I think is really important, is career progression for them as well. And that's something we really want to work hard on, is if we can build a global brand, we can build global careers, which I think is amazing. And our little Aussie brand out of Logan can hopefully create global careers and, build a global community, which is our goal. And what we're working on, I think would be, that's the most inspiring thing as well. So.
Yeah, for sure, Jason. It's super rad to me that you're thinking big picture like that. Stealing from the famous thought leader, James Clear, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And it sounds to me like you're instilling optimal systems so your team members can have not only positive contribution, but pursue a growth trajectory. Because humbly, between you and I've discussed this with a lot of people way smarter than me, but stagnation is a form of hell. It's probably hell's waiting room when you're in the same place you are year after year, kind of swimming around in a fishbowl, not really going anywhere. And to see the growth and evolution of LSKD, stems from your leadership of empowering others, creating optimal systems, and then sitting in with people to ask better questions, and then do this little thing called get out of the way. Let the experts be the experts. And sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. But where I'm very curious here is most startups don't necessarily fail. They run out of money. And so, humbly, what I'm very curious about is, you have such a calm demeanor about you, but you're managing, you're spinning a lot of different cups nonstop. You've got a growing family. You've got young kids. You've got some personal goals, not just as a father, but also as a husband, also as an athlete, as a leader, and as a human being. I'm sure there's internal spiritual work and things that you do to stay so even keel and level, which I really admire. But, I love the visionary side of things. I love the Disney-like conversations. I love the pursuit of empowerment and the storytelling. It's so fun to me. But then you get into the CFO conversations, the financial bits, the return on investments to investors or private equity people. How do you manage all of that? And, how have you kind of gotten your feet wet in the organization and structure of the finances?
It's a great question because it's easy to share that and the passion, but you've got to have that side. And I think I was lucky enough. Our CFO, Matt, he started in, actually, funny enough, August 2018. He started a day a week. He's now full-time. When he started, I really wanted to understand the financial side of the business, to be honest. I had family in the business. They're no longer in the business anymore. I needed to really learn that side of it. And I was so lucky when I met Matt. We actually had a government grant pay for him a day a week. So I had a government grant that paid for half of him. I think it was like $20,000 and I put in 20 because we were literally at a point when I said we weren't doing that well. We really couldn't afford to hire anyone else or put anyone in. And I'd never had anyone at that level. I didn't know what a CFO did. If I'm completely transparent, it wasn't that long ago. I didn't really know what a CFO did. So when I think back then, and it sounds easy to talk about it now, he spent a lot of time teaching me how to read a P&L, cash flow forecasting, planning, margin, which allowed me to understand where to put my time and energy to know that we could keep reinvesting. I mean, we're a self-funded business. So, we've self-funded our growth. And part of that is being understanding and obsessed with that side of it as well, because it's art and science. The art and science is really important. You've got to have the art and you've got to have the science, and you've got to bring almost those two brains together. And I'm just so lucky when I met Matt that he brought the science, and I was like, I have this passion and I got to learn the science, but I'm also constantly learning. I spend so much time in the financial side with our CFO and the teams, and we share a lot with our teams. We share our P&L with the teams. Do a lunch and learn on it to show where we're going as a brand and our growth. And yeah, I mean, that side of it is really important if you want to grow, because to grow, you either have to do those or you've got to make sure you're profitable enough to keep funding growth. And that's something that, thankfully we've been in a position to do that. With the right people around, and, you've got to understand that side of it. It's really important. And, I spend a lot of time on it all the time. So you've got to have both sides. I think it's really important. Art and science is really important, and surround yourself with the right people there. And Matt's played a big part in that journey. It's of being a part of that, of making sure where we need to be as we keep investing in growth, in terms of and investing in growth, it means actually you have to buy more product, because if you don't have product, you can't sell product to your community, which then helps you to keep growing. And then investing in growth in your team, in your team's development, infrastructure, whether it's tech, whether it's our fulfillment center. We've built out our fulfillment center with all new racking again, on another side, with high picking. So, we've had to invest in all that side of it. So we've, got about 3,000 square meters of fulfillment center at the moment, and we're probably almost outgrown it already again, which is fun, and another part of the journey, which is constantly figuring out the next steps. But also you've got to be smart, right? You're a business. You have to be smart with cash flow. So yeah, I think that plays a big part in it as well. It's a great question, because you can hear that side of it, but you've really got to have, and not every, I suppose, founder or entrepreneur is interested in that all the time. So it's like, for me, I love building something and being a part of something, but also when I took that step and really wanted to learn that side of it, and I found, having an amazing CFO and the way he shares and develops the team as well has really helped me to learn at the same time. And know where to put my time and energy. because you only have a short amount of time in a day to get stuff done. And I think that's, like anyone in their career, or if they're starting a brand or a business, you can be doing 40 different things, but if you honed in and did one thing great, where will that take you? You can't do everything at once. And that's something I had to learn over the years as well. I thought I could do a bunch of different things and do it all great, but then you run out of time. And then you run out of power in the mind to do it all, because you're constantly thinking. And I kind of had to strip everything back and just focus on one thing. And was like, just be great at one thing, and not try to be everywhere. And that everywhere was making all these different categories. And I got to learn a lot about technical product, making like water sports, wakeboarding jackets, and all that stuff was actually great for my career, and learning about technical product. But it also was very distracting at the time, because I was just trying to do all these things. And I think that plays why we're here today, and lucky enough to experience all that, because you've only got a certain amount of time in a day to get something to achieve something. So
I love hearing the way you describe that, Jason, because from the outside looking in, it's like, man, like we talked about the cool stuff, the mission, the values, managing a team, managing people. Then we got into some of the messy stuff, which is understanding finances and cash flowing and where to reinvest, and hiring a CFO. The process of getting a government grant and finding ways to, funnel cash flow into the reinvestment of more valuable team members. But then if you even look deeper, it's like materials, design, marketing, production, timeline, organization of all these different things. I'm looking at it and I'm just like a kid in a candy store looking at all the different shiny objects. Like, how does this guy do what he does? And it's cool to hear how you have narrowed your focus, acquired team members to then delegate, and then you're finding ways to manage your time and your energy more efficiently, kind of leaning a little bit more on your strengths, and then trusting to learn from the experts around things that don't necessarily light your fire, but you want them to over time.
Yeah, and if I look back, like I've spent a lot of time in every department over this 15 years in production and even the fulfillment, freight, logistics. I got to spend time in all those departments over the years because I was helping do a bit of everything. Because when you're only a small team of, when it all started, from my mum's bedroom, you've kind of helping do everything. So you kind of get to learn a lot of the fundamentals. Mm-hmm. And then as you get bigger, you can hire, you then bring on team members to really support that know a lot more than you, which is the best thing, because then you start learning. If I look at my time today, I do spend a lot of time in production design, planning, marketing. I do spend a lot of my time around that. Now we've got a retail store and we're opening another one. We're going to have 3 in December. We've got our one at our HQ. We've got one in Chadston, and then another one opening at Chermside, and then another one in March next year, Miranda. I get to spend time in stores. I was in Melbourne last week, and I'm spending time with the store teams and learning there as well. So I'll be on the road learning probably once a week and spending time in store and learning, meeting the community. And, because when you're in an office, it's a bubble sometimes too. So, but I spend a lot of my time in those areas because product's so important for the community as well. And me constantly learning around product and product development and raw materials. I was recently overseas, visiting a supplier with our team as well. So I get to do that too, which is great. And spending time with a new supplier, which was amazing. I was in Sri Lanka for a week, and it was so cool to, now that travel's kind of back, it's amazing to go spend time with your suppliers and the relationship you have with them, because they're so important a part of it, and their goals for sustainability and what they're doing in production, and and their innovation and their goals, and it's really cool. I mean, I get to see a lot in the brand every day. So I spend a lot of time across every areas, and it's not that I don't like departments. I would say that it's the fact of I spend time in areas that I know that can really support different teams at certain times. As I said on Friday, I was in the fulfillment center chatting and mm-hmm. making sure if they need any help, like. I'll go wherever they need me. It's just what you do, and spend time with as many different team members as I can. I get a little bit slack on my emails sometimes because I'd rather be with the team than responding to emails sometimes. I'm a bit slack there because I am just in it with everyone and learning. And I think that's, I think Jim Collins said that 40% of a leader's time, especially a founder or CEO's time, is spending it with the team. So you can learn where it's going wrong and improve. And, and I like that. I love being a part of it.
Jason, that's super cool, man. I definitely align with slacking on email a little bit because I'm trying to observe, what's going on in our space. How can we better serve our members? What are the trends that are going on? And I just prefer to be able to define context in person because humbly, I believe words are an approximation of what we're actually trying to convey. And I think sometimes on a keyboard or written on a Slack or something, it gets misunderstood a little bit. And there's a lot of alignment there for sure.
You can probably hear my Slack in the background going off. I forgot to turn it on mute this podcast, but yeah, you're right. I mean, if you needed to, just give them a call or go see them. That's like, But I mean, it's and you also got to have open communication with your team. I think it's really important that you can be transparent with each other when things aren't going right, and keeping that. But they can also be transparent back to you. It can't be one way. You've really got to create that environment. But yeah, it's spending time with the team and learning, because there's always something going on and there's always new things to learn. And if you want to be better, you've got to constantly improve. And how do you improve is by finding new ways and being in it and learning. So, and then being out there in the community. That's why I love training. Part of how we found ourselves with our mission as well is I was a part of a fitness community, a Fit Stop. They've just launched in the US, and a good friend of mine was the founder of that brand, and we used to race moto together, and they've got about 100 locations here in Australia now. And, I watched him start it from his garage, Pete, and I got to be a part of that too, and training and understanding the power of being a part of fitness communities and functional fitness as a whole. And when you look back at, when you were talking about athletes and how we've moved into the CrossFit community, I look back at our time in motocross, and I was so lucky to sponsor some of the best motocrossers in Australia and traveled the world, and realizing I got to work with athletes and travel. I traveled to America to spend time at the AMA with athletes, and I actually kind of got to almost be involved in all that till when we've moved into different sports, and how we kind of don't force our way in. It's got to happen organically and really build that community over time. I got to kind of learn that in other sports as we've kind of, and I've found a lot of different athletes from action sports have moved into functional fitness or CrossFit, or, whether it's different sports like marathons or all these different sports. Once they've finished, that's also happened as well. Because, they're trying to find that next pursuit of putting themselves through the hurt locker, I think. But it's kind of that whole evolution.
I love that analogy, hurt locker, that you've referenced. It's so cool to me.
Yeah, I don't mind putting myself in that sometimes. It hurts, but it's a level up.
It's cool though.
Yeah.
You got to go there a little bit to seek to understand, to explore, to know what it feels like to resonate with athletes. And, it makes you really, really connect with the community. And I love that slogan behind you around creating community. And our community is why we are here and who we work for. When I say that out loud, what does that mean to you? Knowing that you work for the community, you're learning from the community, and it's not like this expert giving orders style relationship, or here's the product that we're coming out with. This is a collaboration. We're co-piloting one another to pursue maximizing our potential and being a little bit better. When you hear those things and you know that slogan's written behind you, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, it makes me feel good. I mean, and it's taken a long time to understand that, because, typically a lot, and growing up being without, in the earlier days in, seeing different brands, it was always about, like, if I'm being fully transparent, I remember being at different expos and different events you would set up at trade shows. And people would say, oh, the punters are coming. Oh, here come the punters. And I would hate that. I'm like, man, they're people, like real people coming to visit your booth, And I used to set up a lot of trade shows in the early days. And I really didn't like that. I really didn't. And over time, I was like, hang on a minute. Like, why can't we it's all about the community. I don't like calling them customers. I don't like that word. I think community makes it feel a part of something, because I'm a part of the community as well, and I have feedback as well. And I feel like getting valued feedback from our community and how we bring that in and then learn from it is really important. And yeah, we're developing product that the community may not know about it, but we'll get snippets of advice, and even down to our design team. As you mentioned before, like our design and production teams. We're always like, what did the community say? Should we get feedback from them? Whether it's a focus group or just getting feedback on socials, or the little things to understand how we're developing. And our team here are the community as well. They love training. We have a gym here, so we're testing product in the gym all the time. We have athletes coming in all the time. We have a store here, so our community comes in and shops. So we're getting feedback direct from our shop here as well. We have local gyms come and use our gym on a Saturday and put workouts on. Every Saturday, there'll be a gym here coming in with their members and putting a workout on. So we get to learn from all this stuff as well, and just constantly improve. And yeah, it makes me feel good, because I feel like it's not just about doing what we want. Like, we got to work together. I think that plays a big part in it. And I love keeping our community pumped, because I'm a part of that community as well. So, and I think, to me, I honestly, I look at it like when I'm training, I always look at it as like, when I'm running, at the moment, I've just run a marathon, and what gets me through some of those things is like, well, our mission's to inspire people to chase survive. I don't know who I'm inspiring, because I'm inspired by somebody else that I might see on social media, and they have no idea about it. So how do I know that someone might not be inspired by me getting out and trying something that I've never done? Because I get inspired by others. And then how do we do that through our brand and storytelling, I think, is really important, because it's not about me, but I'm the same. I'm a part of that. I'm a part of a community, and I'm the same. I get inspired from other athletes or other team members here. They'll do something, I'm like, that's epic. How did you do that? I want to try that now. Like, that means I'm inspired to want to do it too. So yeah, it makes you feel good. I think the big thing is staying true to that. I think as you get bigger and bigger, I think the big thing is staying true to that, because it's easy to just not do it, right? Like, it's easy to, I think culture and values are a very special thing, and they can be ruined overnight, right? Like, they can be ruined overnight, because you can just flick the switch and just stop doing it, and it'll eventually go down. It's like an athlete, right? Like, they can eventually just change their routine and stop, and the next year they're top 3, and the next year they're top 20. It takes work, and it takes time, and it's you've got to constantly be, you've got to constantly self-check yourself and be self-aware enough that, and have your team around you that are doing the same thing, because you can make mistakes. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it as well, is constantly being self-aware every year. And, because it's not hard to ruin it. You can ruin it very quickly if you want to, which scares me as well, because I'm so passionate and obsessed about making sure we don't. And if I do make a mistake, it's like, guys, you need to pick me up. If I fall down.
There's so much humility in your words, and Jason, you truly inspire me. You have, from the first moment I heard you on the Rise and Conquer podcast, you have continually along the way when we've been fortunate to connect and hop on calls. I love what you and the team are doing, and man, I'm just so inspired to start my week after communicating with you and learning about all the brand mission, the value systems, and the authentic storytelling behind where all those things originated from. So thank you so much for joining me today. Are there any final thoughts that you'd love to share with our community today?
Oh, I talk a lot, so I get excited, but no, I think honestly, I really appreciate it. As you said, humility. I'm a part of the community, and for me, I just want to be myself and share what our passion is and our mission and values, and what we want to achieve as a brand, and our goal to build the community in the US now, as well as we're building the brand there and globally. But yeah, just thank you. I appreciate your time, and yeah, it was great to be a part of it, especially knowing it's Monday morning here and it's your Sunday afternoon. So thank you for making the time on the Sunday afternoon.
So awesome to connect, man. There you have it, guys. Wise words from the founder and CEO of the functional sportswear brand LSKD, combining fitness with a streetwear aesthetic and really changing the game, really breaking industry boundaries. And I'm thankful to Storytell along with Jason Daniel, truly inspiring people to chase the vibe. Thank you guys for listening to our conversation today, as Jason is all the way in Australia and I'm out here in San Diego. If you enjoyed our conversation today, hit that subscribe button. Please rate and review, and don't forget to share with your friends. And as always, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Until next time, guys. Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Bella.
Are you over 35 and in need of a solid training program? Are you looking to improve your athleticism and keep up with the younger athletes in your CrossFit gym? Then look no further than our Invictus Masters program. This program places year-round emphasis on mobility and stability exercises with movements that we have seen directly benefit our Masters athletes. Our program is led by Nicole DeHart and offers a training program designed specifically for Masters athletes who are looking to compete at a higher level in the sport of CrossFit. Some of our top Masters athletes in the world train with us, including CrossFit Games champion Kevin Kester, Matt Beals, and Pat Sprague. You can learn more about their stories and the Invictus Masters program by checking out their episodes right here on the Invictus Mindset Podcast. If you'd like more information about the current training cycle or to join the Invictus Masters program, please email Nicole at invictusathlete.com. That's NICHOLE at invictusathlete.com. Breathing, movement, circulation, digestion. What do all these body functions have in common? Our muscles. There are over 600 muscles in the human body that are responsible for supporting our daily activities. That's why your muscle health is incredibly important. On this podcast, I always discuss seeking our peak expression and striving to maximize our human potential. And so I try to share with you the top products that I find on the market. My H&B is a clinically proven ingredient that has been shown to help build and maintain lean muscle mass, increase strength, improve recovery, and enhance body composition. Learn more about your muscle health at myhmb.com/Invictus. Once again, that's myhmb.com/Invictus. Enhance your muscle health and enhance your life.